Hey everyone, I'm Josh with RMS Roller-Grinder, and I'm with our Research and Development Department.
And I'm Blake Sandus with RMS as well. I'm the Vice President of Sales. And today we're going to talk a little bit about automated gap control and AccuGap. So Josh, why don't you tell the viewers what is automated gap control and AccuGap?
Sure, so since roller mills were first invented, they've been manually controlled. For decades, they've been the same way, and we saw that as a problem because feed mill managers, feed mill operators, any operation that has to do grinding, they didn't want to leave the office to go have to change the grind size at the roller mill. They'd rather do it from in the feed office or in the office of the facility.
Okay, and what is AccuGap exactly?
So AccuGap is our paralleling and zeroing process that allows us to do it remotely. So a roller mill has to be paralleled and zeroed in order to have an accurate and consistent grind. And if something gets knocked out of that, we need to make sure that those rolls get back into parallel with each other and zeroed out properly so that your gap is consistent, providing a quality and consistent grind as well.
Okay, and why do customers typically choose automated gap control systems?
So automated gap control systems can have a variety of reasons to be value add. One of them being a customer has multiple grind sizes of a specific grain, so they feed different animals, say. So like a cow would want to have a 2-piece crack of corn, or a hog would like to have 500 micron very fine feed, and those require very different settings. It could also be a personnel thing, so you have multiple people working in your facility, and they set machines up differently. The reality is we hear things differently, we set things differently, and our forearms just adjust things differently. So there's also the distance. So say the feed mill office or the office of your facility is 100 yards away from where your grinding is taking place. We don't want those guys wasting their time throughout the day going out to that location where the grinder's at, adjusting it, and coming back. That's a lot of unnecessary steps that we want to avoid.
Excellent. And why would they choose the AccuGap system? What's the importance of that?
So AccuGap is important, again, for consistency in your grind, making sure you're creating a repeatable product. And say a piece of foreign material were to go through your machine, say a bolt or a rock, and it knocked your rolls out of parallel. We want to make sure that it gets corrected as fast as possible. And so if we notice that something did happen, AccuGap corrects that and allows us to get back on track on our grind.
Excellent. So when you're talking with customers and they're asking questions about the automated gap control and AccuGap, so in comparison of RMSs to competitors, what are kind of some of the main differences that you point out for them?
Sure. So on our roll gap side, we are the only roller mill manufacturer that independently adjusts the left side and right side together. So we can, when we bring the roll into a position, say a 10 thousandths gap, we're looking at how close we get to that gap on the left side and how close we get to that gap on the right side to make sure that we're consistent across the whole face of the roll. And on our AccuGap system, we want to make sure, again, that we're consistent all the time. So we're the only manufacturer that uses that system as well to make sure that gap is consistent, and we're always repeatedly doing the process the same. So again, personnel, you hear things differently, you feel the gauges are set differently. So when you're setting a gap between a set of rolls, you want to make sure that that's set consistently every time so that your product is always the highest quality.
So the accuracy is utmost importance to get it consistently grind. But what is it specifically about RMS's gap control that allows it to be more accurate than, say, a competitor's?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, the accuracy of how we're measuring. Our sensors measure and position within 1,000th of an inch every time. It's out of tolerance if you measure any different than that. And on the location of where our sensor is at is very specific. We are at the point of where the grinding actually takes place. And some of our competitors measure out where the adjustments are being made. And ignorance is a little bit bliss. If you're adjusting out there and you don't know what your springs are doing, you don't know what your rolls are actually looking like in their position, it could be out of tolerance, but your data says that it's not.
Well, thank you. And obviously, if you have more questions about RMS's roll gap or AccuGap systems or anything else, feel free to reach out. We'd love to explain to you kind of some of the benefits of it and ways of how it could help your facility. Thanks.